You're listening to Street Life, a podcast about street photography with John ST and Mark Davidson.
You're listening to Street Life. I'm Mark Davidson, a street photographer from Melbourne, Australia. And with me, as always, the boy wonder from Sydney, my mate, Mr. John ST. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Mark. How are you?
A little bit weary. I was at the theatre last night, and I went to see Groundhog Day, the musical. Now, I don't know if they fucking deliberately made it 3 hours because they wanted to make you feel like you were stuck in the same day or whatever, but they could have trimmed it down a little bit, I thought. It's like, I didn't get home till 11. Anyway.
Groundhog Day, the musical?
Yeah.
Was it a musical?
It was a musical, yeah. So they sort of adapted the movie and, chuck about 20 songs in there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That must have been very repetitive, Mark.
It was a little bit, but no, they did it very well. They did it well.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad. Did you get free tickets or did you buy them?
Free? Come on,
there
mate.
You go. There you go. Some of the perks of work, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
No, it was lovely. So that was good. Get out on a weeknight.
Good for you.
Yeah. So what have you been up to? You went to another Leica event, I hear.
Yeah, I love free food. Went in with my Fuji cap on in my Fuji. They always give me bad looks. And I just wined and dined on the Leica dime again. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a nice talk by a gentleman. I can't remember his name. Bless him.
Oh, good. It must have been.
But he's a wedding photographer, top 10 in the world, apparently. And he did an exhibition on a project he did during COVID, I think, on the beach. And it was interesting. He did it over 6 days.
Okay.
And he had some very impressive photos saying he'd only photographed for 6 days. It was very nice. Very nice.
Well, very nice.
Nice talk. Very, very good talker.
Have you ever shot a wedding? I don't think I've ever asked you this.
No, I haven't, but I got asked just last month to do a wedding. I got a message in my Instagram. Someone had bumped into me during Anzac Day and said, hi, you probably can't remember me, but I remember you and I follow you.
Yeah.
That's nice. And we had a chat on Anzac Day and I would like to know if you'd be willing to do my wedding.
Come on. You got to say yes.
I said I'd think about it.
Come on, man.
No, I don't do weddings.
You'd have a ball.
Yeah, I know.
Chatting everyone.
I would have a ball. They might not get any photos that they want, but I'd have fun. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. So I don't know.
You'd have the kiss and you'd have like the light and shade shadow right through the couple or something like that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't see any of their faces. They'd all be silhouetted out. You know what I mean? It'd be like, this lad who was doing the event, he's a wedding photographer, and I looked at his photos and they're fabulous, but they look very street orientated or influenced.
Cool. That's good.
So very, very nice. But I think, I was looking at it, I think maybe we could, incorporate like a street type feel to, it was all light and shadowy stuff and fancy Dan. You know what I mean? It was just more like set up street shots that he was doing, but in churches and stuff like that. Very not the traditional type. Exactly. Beautiful work. Really, really beautiful work.
Yeah, a little bit run and gun. I think you could do a great job, mate. You should say yes. Got a bit of cash in the pocket. It'd be fantastic.
They'll afford a Leica.
Exactly. Well, you said the amount of shit you've given me, and you said before the podcast you want an M6 now.
It was because I watched someone's bloody YouTube video just recently about it. And I just, Dan the cameraman just dropped his cheap camera challenge where I participated, my episode, go and check it out on YouTube. And he gave me a film camera and I whinged and moaned about it for about 15 minutes of an 18-minute thing. And I actually quite enjoyed shooting with it. So, it was interesting.
Welcome to the world of film, John.
Yeah. I don't want the expense though, Mark. I've told you that.
Yeah.
Or the suspense. I don't like. I like instant gratification, thanks.
Keep shooting weddings, you can pay for it.
Lad in Adelaide used to. He had about 10 Leicas and he paid for them all shooting weddings.
Do you know the work of Ian Weldon? He's a British photographer. His whole tagline is, I'm not a wedding photographer. He goes to document weddings, but doesn't actually shoot the wedding in a traditional way. So he'll just do, as you said before, like street photography weddings, capturing behind the scenes and that, not really focusing on the ceremony and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting.
Well, that's what this person said they wanted too. But I'm a bit concerned that you give them that and they'll go, well, where's me in my dress? Sorry.
Yeah.
I was too busy watching your uncle with his high-rise pants.
Exactly. You missed the vows, you dickhead.
No, that's the stress of it, you know. I'm a little bit worried about the stress. If you miss a shot out on the street, you go, well, I missed the shot.
Yeah.
Something else will come along. You can't do that in a wedding.
You can't.
You can't go, I'm sorry, I missed the kiss. You're going to have to rebook the day in the church. You know what I mean? It's not gonna fly well, mate.
No.
You know what I mean?
But it'd be interesting.
Would you do a wedding?
Nah, same as you. Too much stress, man. I've never done any sort of paid gig, and yeah, I'd fuck it up totally. It'd be a mess. So no. I mean, you know, I'd be flashing all the guests and stuff.
With your flash.
With my flash, yes.
With your flash. Let's just clarify.
Not Auntie
He's talking
Norma,
about a camera flash here. He's not some kind of pervert from Melbourne.
No.
All right. Let's just clarify that. We don't want to have the kids ringing up, calling up, you know, social services. Pervert on the loose. Anyway. Yeah, so that's that. So I had a good night at the Leica event, and the camera challenge was great. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching it. I've been a bit weary today. I'm going to watch it as soon as we finish recording. So looking forward to that. And everyone else should too. What's it? Dan the Cameraman is on YouTube? Dan
the Cameraman. It's quite punchy, isn't it? Dan the Cameraman.
He needs a song.
Yeah, and he's a good young lad. He's only young, and he's trying to start his YouTube channel and stuff. He's got some good stuff on there. I quite like it. So just anything to help him out, you know.
Well,
me help him out. Probably people switching off as we talk. You know. Anyway.
Well, speaking of helping out, our guest today could do just that. His YouTube has blown up. It's one that we've been following for a long, long time. John, go on. You know what to do.
Today we've got the real Sir Robin. He's a German-born street photographer who also runs a very popular photography YouTube channel. He's known for shooting both film and digital and travels the world taking photos and teaching workshops. Half his luck. He was recently in Australia as well, if people didn't know. It gives us great pleasure to welcome the real Sir Robin, a.k.a. Robin Schimko, to the Street Life podcast. Thanks for joining us, Robin. I hope I got that right.
Yeah, a pleasure being here. Thanks for inviting me.
Robin, thank you so much for joining us. I believe we're speaking to you from Thailand, and I saw you in Malaysia not too many days ago and Spain a few weeks ago. Mate, you must have the best life ever. So is all your travel photography related these days?
It kind of is, yes. It's hard to, when I'm traveling just for relaxation, it's usually not going to happen because I always bring a camera and I will always find something to shoot. For instance, last year when I was in Thailand, I went on I was on an island and I went for this snorkeling trip. And even there, I found stuff to shoot, like street style stuff. I was like, oh my God, because there was this island where all these people were doing these weird things, you know, taking selfies and it was very interesting to shoot. I only had a film camera, so I used that, but yeah.
Fantastic.
So Robin, let's just go back. I've been following you since the COVID days. I came across your channel, as a lot of people probably did, as we were all sitting at home locked down, looking for things to do. And I came across your channel, and I watch all of your videos. It's fabulous. I really love everything that you do. It's a good mix of everything, and you seem to travel the world. But where did your photography journey start, and was it in street?
Yes and no. I mean. It started back when I was in university. I did an internship, and that internship was paid. A lot of internship back then, they were not paid. So this one was paid. And I thought, hey, I should do something with the money. Maybe I should go traveling. So I decided to travel to the Maldives.
Right.
So it paid very well. So, and I thought, hey, if I go there, I need to buy a camera. Because before that, I had no camera. I wasn't interested in photography at all. So I thought, hey, this is such a beautiful place. Nobody will believe me. And I need to buy a camera. So I picked up a camera. And this is basically how it started with photography. And maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years later. No, I think even on that trip, I started photographing random people. On this, we went to this local island where people were doing whatever. And I started photographing strangers. Back then, I had no idea about street photography, that it's even a thing. But I found it more interesting to take photos of people that I actually don't know. because most people, as you might know, they are confused. Why would you take pictures of strangers? But even back then, it was to me it was very interesting. And then a few years later, I went to Korea. It was the first time for me in Asia, and everything was so different. So I was going crazy with my camera, and I was traveling by myself, so there was nobody to shoot that I knew of. So I was only taking photos of strangers. That's how it basically all started.
That's fantastic and super interesting. So when you were taking photos of strangers, right off the top, were you getting in close and doing, the traditional street photography thing of, photographing people a couple meters away, or did you sort of start from a little wider, a little far back, and eventually move your way in, or you bang right in there?
I think, as far as I remember, I was using more longer lenses. Because I had no intentions to do that. It just happened. So I was mostly shooting back then. I was shooting APS-C DSLRs, and then one with the crop factor, every lens becomes a longer lens. And I was shooting, I think 50 or 85, something like that. At some point, it changed a few years later, because then I picked up, when the first mirrorless cameras came out, I picked up a small mirrorless camera with was an Olympus, yes, an Olympus, and I picked up the 17 millimeter lens, so it's basically like a 35. Then it all changed, and then of course when the Q came out in 2015, I went to 28, and so since then I'm pretty much shooting 28 almost exclusively.
Never look back.
No.
So what made you change from Olympus to Leica? What made you make that jump?
Good question. So I was shooting Olympus, and I also had an X100 back then. I think was the second version that came out, but I just hated the autofocus. It was so bad. It let me down so many times. So I was like, okay, I need to get rid of it, and I switched to Sony because I was shooting a lot of weddings also.
Right.
And full frame was much superior, especially for low light. So I bought a Sony, and then when I heard about the Q coming out, I was totally intrigued. I had no intentions to buy a Leica before that. Of course, I knew what it was, but the M was not something I was interested in. But then I heard about the Leica Q. I don't know how, and also a friend of mine, he was working for Leica back then. And I went to my local dealer and I said, hey, so they just presented this new camera. When will you get one? He said, yeah, tomorrow. He will get the second day, the day after he got one. And I said, okay, I want to buy it. And so, next day I went in, I bought the camera. It was the most expensive camera I've bought until that day. And it was the best decision ever. I used it for 8 years. So it paid off very well.
I think you recently gave that camera away, didn't you? You gave it away on your YouTube channel, or have I got that wrong?
No, I did not. Actually, I sold it.
You sold it?
Yes, because I thought, okay, I could, for sentimental reasons, I could keep it because I've been with the camera everywhere. But what's the point? I'm not going to use it anymore since I got the Q3. It's pretty pointless to just keep the camera. So I was like, okay, maybe somebody else will use it, and so I thought, okay, it's better just to sell it.
You call it the OG, don't you?
Yes. I mean, it's it's a camera for using a modern camera, not a film camera, digital camera for 8 years. It's very long, because in 8 years so many things happening. The camera industry is advancing so much, the technology gets so much better. So using camera for 8 years, that's unheard of. For me at least, was unheard of. All the Sony cameras, they were basically, after 2-3 years, there was a new model which was much superior, so switched over to that. But the Q, and even when the Q2 came out, for me, there was no reason to dump my Q and get the Q2, because the difference was not that big. So it was not for me, it was no need to do that.
Yeah.
Robin, I've been following your journey on YouTube, watching a lot of your videos. I just want to ask you about a topic that's sort of bubbling away at the moment. And obviously you're known for using a lot of flash on the street, getting close to people. How now do you Well, what are your thoughts on balancing the rights of people's privacy versus our desire to get a candid moment on the street? What are your thoughts on that?
It's very simple. There's no privacy in public.
Yeah.
Because it's per definition, it's the opposite. This complete nonsense. Somebody is telling me, oh, privacy. If you want privacy, then go somewhere where nobody can see you. Otherwise, it's complete nonsense. So to me, there's, and in most countries, in terms of laws and regulations, it's handled like that. You know, if you're in a public place, so everybody can see you basically. You know, and what's the difference if you take a photo or there's like all these CCTV cameras around? Nobody's questioning that. But if somebody takes a photo, or there's also so many people walking around with a camera, especially if you come here to Bangkok, there's so many people around filming everything. So yeah, I think it's totally overrated. A lot of people, they would argue like that, oh, my privacy, but to me it's complete nonsense, because it literally doesn't make any sense.
It's super interesting because you do travel around the world, so you must encounter different attitudes in the different places you went to. So obviously you're in Thailand at the moment, probably a little bit more relaxed than, you know, maybe your native Germany. And you've also recently been to Melbourne, where you notoriously ran into a man who tried to fight you on the street. Which apologies for that, for being from Melbourne. So that sort of embarrassed me watching it. But yeah, that was interesting. So tell us what happened there.
Actually, it wasn't back then. It wasn't really a big deal. And he was obviously most likely some addict or whatever. So he was just a very crazy person. He was not just a regular person you come across. But if you are doing street photography, you never know. You can look into heads of people, so you don't know what they're up to. And yeah, that guy was just a little bit crazy. It was actually funny because seeing him, so for everybody that has no idea what I'm talking about, but this guy basically, I took a photo and he followed me and he asked me to pay him money because he took his photo, so I have to pay him now, which is complete nonsense. And then there was the security guard, and he was trying to argue with that one. And turned out he used to be a police officer for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So he told him, hey, sorry, dude, you have no rights. It's totally fine. It's public. So that was actually really funny. There was not a bad outcome in any way. So yeah, but this, the thing is, if you do street for many years, you will encounter some weird situations. It will happen. Yeah. But it's so rare. Yeah. It's extremely rare. So the best thing, if you come across something like that, just keep shooting. Don't stop. Don't second guess, what you're doing. Just keep going. It's like in sports, or if you have an accident, the best thing is just to get up and start over again. Don't wait maybe a year or two, because then it's more likely that you will never start, because you will just second guess everything. Yeah, and the reason the funny part, or the best part, was that I was recording it basically. So, and first I thought maybe I should upload it to YouTube. I don't know. Maybe somebody's interested in watching it. And I thought maybe it's a good lesson to learn, and so that's why I uploaded to YouTube. And yes, it's really funny to see the reactions of people. Some reactions are just stupid, It's like, oh, why haven't you just deleted the photo? Yeah, because I was shooting film, and why would I delete the photo? I mean, it's my camera, so he has no right to ask me to delete anything, And especially because it was film. So it seems like a lot of people, they're not really watching a video, because otherwise they would have known that I was shooting a film camera, because I mentioned it in the video. Yeah, it was quite an interesting situation. But yeah, that's, like I said, I've shot a few 100,000 of photos at least on the streets. So
it's very rare.
And that was, yes.
I'm just really sad that it happened in Melbourne, of all places. I've seen your videos. You've traveled the world, and some of the countries that you've been to, you would look and you'd think, oh, Robin, be careful. Just be careful where you're out there. You're going out at night and all these things. And then you rock up in Australia to do a bit of an Australia gig. You had a great time in Sydney, as far as I know. And then you went to Melbourne, and then that happened. And I just want to apologise for Australia. I'm so sorry, Robin.
Don't worry.
Sorry. He was an interesting character.
The thing is, most things, they happen in the most random places when when you're not even thinking about it. I mean, yes, people would expect something like this if you go, like, I when I went to Mexico a few times, or when I was shooting in Russia street, and was using flash at night, and people would expect that you might get in trouble, but it was quite the opposite, and nobody cared at all.
Really?
In Mexico, the same thing. I was there for months and I had no issues. That doesn't mean that it cannot happen, but yeah, no incidents, nothing. In Mexico was totally fine. Even though, it can, yes, I know it can get sketchy, and I know people that had trouble there. They were not photographers, but still, if you're not careful, you can run into trouble. But when I was shooting there at night, especially, yes, you have to be a little bit careful and don't just hang around in one area. Just move quickly, then you're pretty much fine.
And what about Russia? I haven't been to Russia. Did you feel safe on the streets there, shooting there?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, nice.
Even at night, no problems whatsoever. It was actually was one of the best countries because there's no, if you go to New York, there's on every corner there's at least one street photographer.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
When I was in Russia, there was nobody basically. I mean, maybe I stumbled upon one or two photographers in that time, but there's hardly anybody shooting. So there was so people are not spoiled, that they don't really care. For them, it's like they maybe just think, oh, it's some weirdo. If it's girls, they usually just laugh. For them, it's like a compliment. If you take their photo, so you have to be really fast, so they don't smile or pose for you. But same in Mexico. People are so polite, so you have to pull off the shot very quickly, because otherwise they would just smile at you, and then, as you know, it already looks kind of staged. So, so you have to react very fast.
What was Russia like to shoot in? Was there good material there, or was it just stock standard stuff? What was the difference in shooting in Russia to say somewhere like Mexico, or because I've never been to Russia. I know Mark wants to go. Is it worth going? Is it good? Is it good shooting? It is.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've been only to like the major cities, and I guess if you go to more remote areas, might be even more interesting, because you can still find some Soviet style stuff, and in the big cities, it's almost like in the West, but still it's hard to describe. You have to see it for yourself. But the cities are, St. Petersburg, for instance, is a very beautiful city, and it's very spacious. It's not so cramped. Like here in Asia, everything is very cramped. There it's more open, and the light is very nice, especially if you go in the summer when it's not really getting dark. So you can shoot even maybe around midnight, and it's you still have light, which is very strange. Or the sun rises back at maybe 3 a.m. So you can basically go out, but there will be nobody outside. But I think if for street photography, it's a pretty good place. Yes, absolutely.
Robin, just wanted to ask you, is photography your full-time job? Because obviously we see you, as we've been discussing, traveling around the world, photographing. I mentioned earlier about your trip to Spain, which looked amazing, by the way. John, I don't know if you've seen this, but they took, 10 to 12 photographers to Andalusia and
10, yes,
and shot a campaign there, which just looked amazing. Some of the photographers that I follow online, and it just looks like an incredible trip. And so YouTube has opened these doors for you. Did you ever think that you'd be in these kind of situations when you started your YouTube channel?
No, not at all. For me, it was I started YouTube because people ask me about, hey, how do you do this and how do you do that? So I thought, hey, maybe I just film it and to document it, and then I put it on YouTube so people can see. And if somebody asks me, I just say, hey, just watch the video. This is basically how it started. Yes. And then at some point, it got more and more. Nowadays, it's, the thing is, if you with YouTube is you have to decide, because I was shooting a lot of weddings. And when you shoot a lot of weddings, they always pre-booked in advance for months or years. So it's basically, especially in Europe in summer, everything is, you basically for half a year, you can't travel anywhere. And for me, I had to make a decision. Okay, if I want to pursue more YouTube stuff, so I have to maybe cut down on weddings, because otherwise I will not be able to travel during summer. And but I happily did it because I was shooting so many weddings, it got a little boring already. So I thought maybe it's better if I can shoot whatever I want to shoot. I mean, if I shoot a wedding, it's just, people never tell me what to do because they trust me. They say, hey, just do whatever you want. It's fine. But still, it's like you have this framework and you cannot really get out. So it's if you have shot hundreds of weddings, they're all very similar. So
Yeah.
not much changing. And I like to travel to a lot of places in this world that are maybe more remote, where people don't like to go or usually don't go, and to document those places. I've shot street in places that, I mean, for you guys in Australia, it's not that far, like in the South Pacific, but I never recorded it for YouTube. I was there for a job, for photography job, but on the side, when I had time, it was just, okay, that's such a cool place here. Maybe let's do some street photography here and let's see if it's possible. And it is. I mean, you can shoot street anywhere. But yeah, so what was the question?
You're just sort of expanding on how YouTubers open these possibilities for you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and also it's really funny how many I got a lot of jobs because of YouTube. It's the Andalusia thing was one thing because it's very present because all the photographers that got invited, they published videos about it. But there's a lot of things that people don't know about that I'm doing, but I'm not recording it for YouTube. But yeah, that thing was, let's say when they asked me about this, first I thought it's a scam because you get so many messages like, it's very strange, and then it sounded to be good to be true. And I thought, usually it's not true then, but I thought, okay, maybe let's see, maybe it is.
Yeah.
And it turned out, it was. And everybody there, every photographer that was joining that project, they said all the same. Nobody had an idea how big this is going to be.
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy when we were there. Like, okay, this is serious. With the documentary, and now they also have the book. And I've heard that the book is almost finished, or they already have some copies. So I haven't seen it. So I of course look forward to see it. But yeah, and the documentaries will be dropping also very shortly. And that already was pretty crazy. I mean, the budget for the whole project must have been, I have no idea, but like, I guess it's 7 figures. Was pretty insane.
Yeah, I don't know, John, if you've seen this. So obviously Robin and some of the other photographers that I follow, like Mark Chudley and Jason from Grainy Days, they all went. And it just looked like the most insane trip ever. And they were bringing their wives to, record them. It just looked like, as you say, the budget just must have been astronomical. But So the doco's dropping, you said shortly, is that right? Or
yes. I think it should have been ready by the end of January. But how it works usually, things they take longer than you expect. So, but I think it's almost it will drop very, very shortly.
And does that put a lot of pressure on you, Robin? So you they're picking up the tab. They've hired you, which is amazing. But do you feel that pressure to get some good work in a short amount of time? Like they drop you in Andalusia, and you've got to create work for them in a couple of days or a week or whatever. That must have some pressure attached.
5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Yes. I mean. Some other photographers, they mentioned in their videos that they've been told that they have to deliver 20 book-worthy shots in that time.
Wow. Yeah.
I wasn't aware, to be honest. Nobody's told me that. I mean, 20 shots, book-worthy shots in 5 days, that's a lot.
That's hard, yeah.
Yes, a lot of people would take years for that, So it's like, okay. But yeah, you have to deliver, but I'm used to that. When you shoot weddings, it's the same thing. You have to deliver because you cannot repeat the day. If the day is gone, it's gone. So you better be ready whenever the photo presents itself to take it. And yes, I mean, the only thing I was a little worried about was the weather, because when we arrived there, it was a little sketchy. It was raining and the lighting wasn't good. But later on, it got better and better, so it was fine. But yeah, that could have gone terribly wrong. If there would have been like 5 days of rain. So I was thinking, why do this in winter? I don't understand. It's exactly the time where it's more likely that you have maybe, or you will encounter some bad weather. In summer, it's very unlikely, but I mean, they got really lucky because this could have turned out really badly with like rain or whatever, But yeah, it was okay in the end.
Well, you got some great shots, especially the guy on the beach. It's an amazing shot. So, yeah, good work.
Yeah, thanks.
I saw when you rocked up and you said, oh, it's raining. And I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, what's he going to do? Because you just spoken about how big the project was, and
Yes.
when, like you said, the project, they had to throw that much money, they have a very high expectation.
Yes.
And you have no control over the weather.
Yes.
So what would you have done, Robin, like as a paid professional, what would you have done if it had been raining like the entire time and you had to get 20 book-worthy shots? And how did they give you an idea, a direction about what they wanted? Because you're a street photographer, yeah? I guess. Yes. That's predominantly what they would have seen.
Yes. So I was asking them up front. So I said, hey, you know what you're doing. And so basically the project was for the tourism board. And some of the people working there, they actually also are photographers and they like street photography. So that's how they basically follow all these photographers. So that's how they came up with the idea and invited all of us. And I said to them, hey, you know that what I'm doing. And maybe because it's a commercial project, maybe it's a little bit different, especially with all the privacy laws in Europe, which are completely nuts. And it's a little, let's say it's a little overreach from the EU, to be honest. But you have to have like a model release basically for everybody. And they said, yeah, they will take care of it. It's like, okay, this could be interesting, especially if you have like 20 people in the shot, you know, how are you gonna do that, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
But I have to say, I mean, it's a little bit. You have to change your approach a little bit because usually when I shoot, if it's just me, I can move around freely. But so I had my assistant, and we had the driver who is also the translator and also did the whole thing with the signing the documents for us basically. And so if you have two people following you already, this is already a change. So you cannot just because I have to make sure that they are all around me, because if I take a photo and then our driver is not here to ask them for permission, then yeah, we cannot use it, you know. And I have a few shots that we cannot use because I don't have anything, and because it wasn't even possible to ask them.
Oh no.
But our driver was an absolute legend, so he was really good in convincing people to participate in this project. So that was good, and I have to say the whole crew was so professional. The whole production crew, because this project I think was also a little unique, because usually they do this kind of job for Hollywood productions.
Yeah.
Like big budget productions. Yes. Also the film crew that did the documentary, they usually work on Hollywood sets and stuff. So
wow.
Yeah. And it was also nice to work with professionals where you don't have to tell them what to do, because you can rely on them. They know what they're doing. Yeah. And usually when I work with people, they have no idea, so I have to instruct them. But in this case, there was no need for that. It was pretty cool, actually. Also in the documentary, you know, I knew exactly when the director said, "Hey, let's do this and that." I knew why, because you know it was very cool. Yeah,
that's great. Just touching on that, when you said, like, you know, there was a number of people who were organising this. They follow a lot of street photographers. Why do you think there's become such this interest, this rebirth of street photography? Because it was huge back in the 50s and 60s, and it sort of disappeared, and then it's like boomed again. Why do you think this is? Do you have any reasons or ideas of why it's become so popular again, street photography?
It's a good question. And I'm not so sure if it was really big in the 50s and 60s, to be honest. Maybe if we now look back, but I think now it's way, way bigger than then, because also photography is more accessible and it's much easier. People use their phones, you know, they have a camera basically with them all the time. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's also because street photography, the term is so broad. There's a lot of things that are called street photography that I wouldn't consider street photography, like all these, you know, all these videos on these short videos. Oh, I'm a street photographer. Can I take a portrait? You know, these kind of videos. I hate them. I absolutely hate them, because it's not street photography, not at all. It's just a shitty portrait, mostly. Just because it's just a portrait of somebody with the blurry background. There's nothing special, you know. It's not a good portrait. But people, you know, then they think, oh, that this is street photography. That's not really. But I don't know why it became so popular, why it's so popular right now. But it must be because you know, all these companies, they are especially the camera manufacturers, they are so focused on this.
Yeah.
And especially Leica, I think Leica is doing very well. And I think it's their cameras are mostly catered towards this kind of people that do the documentary, more unstaged kind of photos. But it's really hard to tell what the reason is actually. But maybe it's because photography in general became more popular, and just some subgenre that also became more popular because of that. That might be a reason. So maybe there's no particular reason that street photography, maybe it's became more popular as the rise of photography in general.
Well, just touching on that, Robin, what do you consider street photography? So what do you define it loosely or pretty rigidly, or how do you define street photography?
For me, it has to be candid. Because it's otherwise it's more, it's there's no there's documentary photography, which I would not consider street photography, because it always has some staged elements in it, which is fine. I like doing that kind of photography as well, but I would not call it street photography. Street photography, there's I think was it Bruce Gilden who said that you have to smell the streets in the photo,
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe a little bit gritty, a little bit dirty, maybe not technically perfect. But for me, what street photography, there's also this a lot of photographers do these silhouettes and stuff like this. It's not my thing, because to me it's just boring, because you can just take the same shot again and again. It will be pretty much the same, because there's no soul in it. There's no emotions sparked in me when I look at that. So I like interactions. I like when people, this, for me, this is my style of street photography, but other people, they have a different style, which is fine. I mean, but for me, I think it's people, there have to be people in it. It has to be candid. That's important. And ideally, it's good if you have different layers, which is often not so easy to accomplish, because there's so many things going on. Sometimes you have no control. So it's very, very difficult. So for instance, when I was just in Malaysia, we went to this event, this Hindu event, and it was absolutely crazy. We went there we shot basically the whole night. We started around midnight and shot until 8 a.m., which wasn't that easy, because, I was so tired, but it was totally worth it, because there was no other photographers. But in the daytime, there were so many photographers. Basically, it was almost impossible to not have a photographer in your photo as well. So, and then it was so busy, it got really difficult to get a composition where you have different layers. So when we're shooting at night, it was a little bit easier. And but in general, I think it's if you can achieve that, you have maybe some subject, and you have different layers in the photo. That's really good. But it's hard. And you most likely will fail most of the time, and sometimes you will succeed, but most of the time you will fail. So this is for me like the best about street photography. When you achieve this, it happens once in a while. You get this good shot where everything just lines up, or you have to go to certain places. I think India is the perfect place for that, because there's just so much chaos going on that it's easier. Like, if you shoot in the West, same in Australia, people on their phones, and it's just, it's so frustrating, because if you then go to, when I was shooting in Egypt, in Cairo, there was almost nobody on the phone. And it was so refreshing to see people just walking around, looking up, not looking down the whole time. But in Asia, it's very bad. In the West, it's very bad. So, yeah.
Do you know what ruins street shots for me, and happens in Australia all the time? I hate backpacks. Fucking hate backpacks. Everyone has a backpack, and for me, as soon as someone has a backpack in the shot, I'm like, fuck it, I'm out. It's phones and backpacks. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the backpack thing, I can relate to that. When I was shooting in Bangkok in this train station for this project that I started there, I try to avoid the typical backpacker tourists, because they're pretty much the same thing. I don't want them in my photos because they're pretty much ruining the shot then, because it doesn't fit in. They stand out too much.
Yeah.
So, Robin, I just want to go on, like, people watching, you're creating all these wonderful videos, you travel the world, you're living the life, but you just posted a video recently where you hit a bit of a low spot and you needed to rejuvenate yourself. What happened, and how did that all come about, and what made you pick Bangkok as the place to become reborn?
Reborn.
So that was more of a motivational video because I know there's a lot of people that are in this caught in this rut and they cannot get out. For me, I never really had that issue
okay.
because I always had maybe different ideas or maybe I can try this and that. But when I was in Bangkok last year, and also when you do street photography, and you're doing the same thing again and again. So last year when I was also here in Bangkok, and for me this place here is because it's very easy to travel to other places from here. So it's always like 1 hour flight, maybe 2 hours flight, and you can move around very easily, and it's not expensive. It's fairly cheap. So this is for me the reason that to come here to Bangkok. And it's fairly affordable, If for me, it doesn't make a difference if I stay in Europe or here. I probably spend less money here than being in Europe, so it totally makes sense to come here. And I don't like winter, like snow. It's not my thing. Shoot in the. I was shooting in Korea in winter, and it was minus 18 degrees, and it was so cold. It was not fun, I was freezing the whole time walking around, so I had to walk around. Otherwise, I could not just stay somewhere because it was just too cold. And the batteries die much faster, and then you have to use gloves, and with gloves, it's not fun to use the camera. So for me, I need the warmth of the sun. So, and also in winter in Europe, it's always overcast the whole time. And it's it's just, it's really hard to motivate yourself to do something. So it's like, okay, now if it's that time of the year, I need to get out, just go somewhere where it's very different, where you maybe try something new, maybe come across something new, like this event in Malaysia. So a friend of mine, he's a street photographer from KL. He asked me, told me you should come here to shoot this event because it's very interesting. And I did, and I was blown away. It was pretty crazy. So you will see there will be a video coming, and it was very, very crazy. And so that's, here things happen just so quickly. You meet maybe somebody, then you get this new idea, and usually when you stay back home, it's unlikely to happen. So that's why I did that video, and especially I did it because I thought that a lot of people will probably can relate to that kind of feeling, and actually somebody commented under the video. Because of the video, he booked the flight to a place where he wanted to go since a long time, and now he finally pulled the trigger. It's like, man, perfect. That already made it worth making the video. So I motivated somebody to do this.
It's great. That's really good. There's nothing better, because I was in a rut and I had to get up and move, and I changed cities. I was in Adelaide and I moved to Sydney, and it just rejuvenated me like no end.
Yes.
Like hugely. Like I was ready to put my camera down and then come to a new city, and just, it's not just photographing a new city, it's the everything around it, like the community and everything else that's part of it. So that's great. Oh, well, I'm glad it's only a motivational video, Robin, because I honestly thought you were on a downer, mate. You were sitting there on a log. You were sitting there on a log, and I thought, oh God, it's cold in Germany. I thought,
I just said the Spain, the project in Spain,
Yeah, I know. I thought, God, he's gone downhill quick. But what's your experience like shooting in Asia compared to, say, someone like Latin America?
Latin America, I was just only in Mexico, so I cannot talk about maybe South America. I was shooting a little bit in Peru a few years ago, but if you compare Mexico maybe to here in Asia, I think it's very similar, to be honest. People are super friendly. It's the same. And I think it's very similar. And obviously the environment is very different, That's but the aesthetics, it's everything is different, but the way people are is very similar. But what I like about here is that there's always something going on. There's always something, and life usually happens outside here. And I think it's also in Mexico, it's also very similar. People, they eat out. They usually don't eat at home. The same here. People go out. There's always something going on, and that's I think that's very similar.
And Robin, we've been talking about your travels. You've been hopping from country to country, doing jobs here and there and everywhere, which sounds amazing. I'm so envious. I want to do that myself. But, so do you have sort of a goal in mind with your photos? So are you working towards a project on countries where you are, or is it sort of just capturing single images wherever you are in the world?
Yeah, good question. I try to avoid this hunting for single photos because it's pretty meaningless. Yes, you can post them on social media, but even there, it's not really working anymore. Like Instagram, because people will not see it because Instagram is just pushing videos like crazy. So I try more to focus on projects or series, and I think in general that helps you to keep being motivated to start a project. I think that's very important. Just using or just shooting single images, to me that's not the main reason I do photography. I like really shooting for projects, and a lot of people ask how can you find this project? I mean, often the project will just find you. You will maybe shoot a certain event or shoot this and that, and then suddenly maybe if I do this more often, I can turn this into a project. And also, I've noticed that sometimes you come to a place and it's an amazing place for photography, but nobody's shooting there. It's like, why is nobody doing that? It's interesting. It's so good, but nobody's really shooting. So here in Thailand, there's in Bangkok, I've never seen anybody like a serious street photographer. You don't see them here. I mean, there's photographers here doing that, but it's very rare to see them. And there's maybe, I don't know if you've seen the video that I shot here last year when during Songkran, the water festival. Mm-hmm. So nobody was really shooting there. Some people, they used the action camera. That was it, basically. There were some news outlets that had their big cameras with lenses, and they're all covered up to protect them from the water. But nobody was really getting in the action shooting. So it was I could not believe it. It's like, hey, this is amazing to shoot. Why is nobody doing that? I don't understand.
And do you see that turning into a bit of a project yourself? Like, would you do a book on Thailand eventually, or?
I mean, yes. So I've been shooting a lot of like these events in different places, and I think this will be in the long run. This will probably turn into some projects because I think as a body of work to have because these events are very different. So I think it's a very huge variety of different shots. So I would try to do this maybe also in Latin America and Europe, and then put this together. And also I started to many years ago, maybe actually when I started with photography or street photography, I started taking photos of people sleeping in public places. So I've been doing this since many years now. So I have a lot of photos. So this is also sort of a long-term project. But the one issue I have with projects is I try to be consistent, like using the same camera again and again. So the look is very consistent. It's easy when I use the Q because the first Q and the Q3, the photos will look very similar. So there you cannot tell the difference. But when I take these photos of people sleeping, sometimes I use my phone. I was using film cameras, whatever I had in that moment. So it's like the photos, in terms of look, they look very different. So it's the only thing, but what can you do? And also if you shoot, I just was asked a question when I was in Malaysia about doing a project on film. It's like, yes, nowadays, I prefer to do this with a digital camera for one reason, because if you shoot this like a long-term project on film, you have no idea if this film stock will be around in a few years. So maybe then you're out of luck. And because you're doing this to have this consistent look, shooting this one particular film. I think you had Matt Stewart on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
I have his his first, or I think it was his first book. And so he was using Pro 400H for it's pretty much the whole book is Pro 400H. So now Fuji discontinued the film basically. So what are you going to do then? Now we use different film stocks. The photos will look maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
So that's why for project, I stick to digital cameras instead of film. But in general, I think shooting for projects is the way to go, and I think more people should do it.
I just want to ask you a question. Like you talk about projects, but zines have become very popular of late, and lots of people are releasing them. And I think when I first got into photography, wasn't too long ago. You were one of the first people that I saw doing a lot of zines, and I just want to ask you, what are the purpose of those zines? Is it purely for to make additional side hustle cash, or do you use it as to way of put your work out there so more people can see it, or do you use the zine? Oh God, I hope I'm not answering the goddamn question for you here, Robin. I have a habit of doing this. Or do you use the zine just to try out different styles or whatever you're trying to do? Or was that also part of a project?
No. So the reason to do zines is very easy. So if you have a project, it's the best way to present that. I mean, yes, of course, you can make a book, which is pretty much a glorified zine, but if you can just put it on the website, but most likely people will not look at it, or maybe on a small screen on their phones. That's how people nowadays do it. And if you put it on social media, usually these photos that work maybe as for a project in a zine, they might not work as single photos. And usually people just flip through, then they look at it for 1 second, then they flip to the next image. And I think the zines are very good to present certain projects.
And how have you found producing them? Are they difficult to do, like time consuming as well? And are they beneficial in that regard after all the work that goes into them?
Yes, when I did so the first zine I did, because people asked me, they asked for it. Yeah. So they said, hey, maybe you should do this. Okay, let's do it. So I had no experience doing that. So I had no experience in graphic design or anything. So luckily a friend of mine, he's a graphics designer. So he helped me out putting it together, which wasn't too hard, to be honest. And also zines are good if you want to, maybe in the long run, you want to publish a book. And zines are good to try out maybe different styles, how to present it, because with every zine you will learn maybe, and then you will you make the zine and you will realize, maybe the paper I don't like too much, or this and that. So the format, maybe a square format is better. I think that's also because I'm glad that I did not publish a book. The first thing that I did was publishing a book, because now I would think, man, maybe I should have done it differently. And the book is way, way more expensive to do than a zine. If you mess up a zine, it's not ideal. It's not a big deal. But if it's a book and you invested a lot, then maybe it's maybe not so nice. So I think it's as a learning, the learning curve, it's always like in photography, it's also when you do zines. So you have to maybe do a few and then you get better.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So we're coming to the end of our time, Robin, but I've got a few things to ask you.
Yes.
We're going to lighten the mood a bit, all right? Because I remember when I was watching your videos on Mexico, you had this weird wrestling mask, mate. And I want to know, what's the story behind that mask? Because it freaked me out a bit at first, I have to say.
Actually, there's no story. It's like, it's Mexico, so that's what you like, the Mexican wrestling.
Right. Okay.
So I saw those masks. People were selling them on the streets with the souvenirs and stuff, and I saw that mask, and I thought, hey, maybe I should buy one just for fun, and put it on in a video. That's basically the only reason I did it.
I'm glad you cleared that up. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm a bit of a Monty Python fan myself, so you better tell the listeners how you got your name. People will be wondering.
Yeah, you already answered the question.
Sorry.
He's just doing what I'm doing.
It's basically from the Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yep.
The real Sir Robins, because there's the Sir Robin, the not so brave Sir Robin.
Fantastic.
He pissed his armor. I always liked that movie, and I used already even before photography, I was using Brave Sir Robin as my alias. So then when I came up with the idea of doing a YouTube channel, I thought, hey, maybe I should use that somehow. So I think this was already taken or something. I don't know. I don't remember. But then I thought, hey, the real Sir Robin, maybe that's good. So I picked that.
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
So we are coming up to our hour. I know you probably want to get back out on the streets of Bangkok and have some street pad thai. But I just want to ask you really quickly. So you do workshops around the world.
Yes,
So how's the first thing? Tell us, how do people book those if they want to? And secondly, how did you go from being a student of the craft to transitioning to impart your knowledge onto other people?
Yeah, booking through my website. So I have now one in April during Songkran here in Bangkok for 1 week workshop. I think the reason is because I'm doing it since many years, everything became second nature. And every time I met somebody, maybe there was just a beginner starting out with street photography, I've noticed a lot of things that they were doing. I was like, oh, why? Okay, that's weird, and maybe not getting close when you need to get close, or also fumbling around with the camera and basically missing the shot. That's because it happens to everybody, of course, but nowadays it happens less because I know what kind of settings I want. So it's and I started. So people ask me before I did officially did workshops. People ask me about this already. So maybe, hey, can you maybe, I don't know, mentor me or something? And then I started doing workshops, and I've noticed that, these things that to me are second nature, for them, it's they still need time to get there. But it's always nice to see people progress in only a few days and improving a lot. And maybe, and also if you do a workshop, it's never about getting the best shot in the world, because it's most likely not happening. But once in a while, it happens that during a workshop, somebody takes a photo and he says, hey, that's the best photo I've ever taken, And you basically brought that person there because you told them, hey, maybe this is a good spot. Maybe this situation is good. Maybe try this in these settings. And then it just happens. That's also, to me, it's very motivating. And also you meet a lot of interesting people. Very, very interesting people through workshops. And you never know who's coming to your workshops. Sometimes like, what are you doing? Some CEOs, and I had some crazy people on my workshops already where it's like, oh, okay. Suddenly you feel very small,
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
and also I think,
go on. Sorry.
And also,
Robin.
it's you can always share a lot of advice on videos, but I think it's a different story if you have to put it into practice outside. So I think this helps tremendously. You can, there's all these keyboard warriors that are just watching videos and they're not doing anything. Mm-hmm. But if you actually have to get out and do it, it takes a lot more. And I think a workshop helps to improve a lot faster than just watching videos. And also you meet a lot of people in these workshops. You make maybe friends that might be friends forever. You can visit them. Maybe you meet them somewhere else in some other countries. So this happens even to me, even though I'm the instructor. It's the same thing,
Absolutely. And people listening now, tack a week or two onto the end of it, make a nice little holiday, do a workshop. That's a fantastic, best reason to go to Thailand. So yeah.
Can I just ask, Robin, has anyone ever come to the workshop and you've gone, you don't need to do a workshop, they're actually really good?
I'm surely. I guess you always
everybody needs to improve. Everybody. It's the same applies to me. You can always improve. So nobody's perfect. So yes, there's a skill gap sometimes. Some people are more advanced than others, of course, but usually, it's all right. It's nobody where I think, okay, you don't need anything. You just go out and do whatever.
Yeah.
But some people actually they are on an advanced level. They do workshops just to meet to network, to meet other people.
Yeah,
Robin,
that's good.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for carving out some time to chat to us. But we always finish the podcast with one little cliched question, and I'd be really interested to hear what you're going to say because you've been to a lot of places around the world. But if you could jump on the plane tomorrow and go and shoot somewhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Wow, that's a tough question, to be honest. I could say to Bangkok, but no, that doesn't count because I'm already here. If I could pick one spot, doesn't matter where.
Doesn't matter where, anywhere.
Okay. I think it would be something very crazy, maybe like Pakistan or maybe Iran.
Yeah.
something like that, something very exotic. And I mean, I've been to Iran, but I think there would be some place like that. A lot of people would say maybe New York or Paris or whatever, but I think I would pick some not so popular spot.
Very good answer.
Fabulous. Well, I hope you don't get arrested in Iran if you're doing street photography. It can be a little bit touchy sometimes.
No. I mean, I had a wonderful time there, to be honest.
Oh, did you really?
Yes.
Oh,
it was one of the
That's interesting.
It was super safe and was really good. The only things you have to stay away from, maybe taking photos of police and military, but that's in a lot of countries, so it's similar.
Absolutely, yeah.
But besides that, it was incredible,
really.
I mean, it's been a few years, but still, it was amazing.
I guess it's just perception, isn't it? I've got
a number of the media. The media will tell you, "Oh, these all the bad people," but the media is full of shit, to be honest. That's one thing I think. Also, the whole street photography thing, for me, it helped me a lot. I mean, I studied sociology, so for me, I'm already curious about people. But for me, that opened up the whole world and opened up new perspectives on life, because you will see people living a very different lifestyle, and maybe then you start questioning, maybe your lifestyle is not the way to go. Maybe their lifestyle is, maybe, you can adopt a few things. So I think that's also one thing I really like about street photography, because it helps up to broaden your view on things.
I've got a number of Iranian friends here, and they're wonderful people. They're really, really lovely people,
They were almost too nice, to be honest, when I was there. Oh my God, it was crazy. I got approached so many times. Oh, thank you for coming to Iran. And they speak English very well. I was very surprised.
Exceptionally well. Well. Lovely, lovely people. Well, Robin, thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been, as Mark said, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for taking some time to talk to us. I know you're very busy. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thanks from my side. I mean, it was a pleasure being on your podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you around. If you're Australia, touch base with Mark and I.
Yeah, for sure.